Imagine waking up tomorrow and the simple act of praying could get you arrested. Or worse. No screenwriter invented this. This is Tehran. This is right now. In a country of 90 million people, there are thousands of men and women who whisper their prayers behind locked doors, meet in secret in someone's living room, and never, never, tell their neighbors what they believe. Because if they do, their family could disown them. Their employer could fire them. The government could throw them in prison. And in some cases, they simply disappear. Most people only hear the name Iran attached to sanctions, nuclear talks, or conflict. But behind those headlines are 90 million real lives, and some of those people are doing something that requires more courage than most of us will ever be asked to find. They're Christians. Practicing, believing, committed Christians. In one of the most theocratic Islamic republics on the planet. You might think you already know where this is going. You don't. Not even close. Because this isn't just about religion. It's about identity. It's about survival. It's about what a human being is willing to risk when something matters to them deeply enough. But to understand what's happening today, you have to go back. Much further back than you'd expect. Iran's Christian community has roots that stretch nearly 2,000 years into the past. We're not talking about some recent foreign influence or a missionary pamphlet handed out at a border crossing. Christianity was in that land before Islam even existed. The Armenian Christians built churches in the mountains of northwest Iran that were already ancient when the great European cathedrals were just a sketch on parchment. The Assyrians kept their liturgy alive in villages so remote that empires came and went without ever touching them. The ancient Church of the East planted its roots so deep that centuries of pressure never fully pulled them out. These communities didn't adopt this faith. They are this faith. But here's where the story shifts, and where it gets truly intense. Because there's a difference between the Christians who were born into Christian families, and the ones who converted. And that distinction, in Iran, it can literally mean the difference between life and death. So let's talk about that line. Invisible to outsiders. Absolutely everything to the people living on either side of it. In Iran, the government officially recognizes three Christian minorities: Armenians, Assyrians, and Chaldeans. On paper, they have the right to practice. They can maintain their churches, hold their services, and teach their children. It sounds almost reasonable, right? Almost protected. But here's the catch. That protection comes with walls around it. They cannot evangelize. They cannot preach to Muslims. They cannot publish the Bible in Farsi, the language that 80 million Iranians actually speak. Their faith is tolerated the way you tolerate an old relic in a museum. Look, don't touch. And whatever you do, don't spread it. Now contrast that with the converts. In Iran, if your father was Muslim, the law considers you Muslim. Full stop. No choice. No opt-out. So the men and women born into that designation, who at some point heard something, read something, felt something, and quietly decided they believed in Jesus Christ, they crossed a legal line the moment they made that private, personal decision. In the eyes of the Islamic Republic, what they did has a name. It's called apostasy. And under a strict interpretation of Islamic law, apostasy is punishable by death. We're not talking about a medieval history book. We're talking about men and women alive today, scrolling the same internet you're scrolling, who made a personal spiritual decision, and now live every single day knowing that decision could be used to destroy their lives. So how do they survive? They built something. Quietly, carefully, over decades. A network of house churches. No steeple. No sign on the door. No listing on Google Maps. Just a living room, a group of people who trust each other with their lives, literally, and a Bible that probably got smuggled across a border inside someone's luggage. These gatherings are small by design. 6 people. Maybe 10. Because the moment a group gets too large, someone informs. And when someone informs, the intelligence ministry shows up. Pastors have been arrested mid-sermon. Worshippers dragged out of prayer meetings and thrown into Evan prison. If you don't know that name, look it up after this. It has a reputation that precedes it for all the worst reasons. And yet they keep meeting. Every week. Same risk. Same choice. Same living room. Because for these people, stopping would feel like a different kind of death altogether. If you're watching this story, tighten your blanket and hit the like button so YouTube understands you want the next chapter unlocked. And tell me in the comments, which beautiful country are you watching from? And what's the exact time there right now? Now here's something most people never stop to think about. What does a normal Tuesday look like when your faith is essentially illegal? Because it's easy to hear the words, persecution, and house churches, and mentally file this whole story under some distant, dramatic category. Something you feel bad about for 30 seconds and then scroll past. But these are people with jobs. With kids. With grocery lists. With neighbors who wave at them every morning and have absolutely no idea who they really are. Take a city like Tehran. 13 million people packed into one of the most heavily surveilled cities in the region, by most accounts. Cameras. Informants. A neighborhood committee system that's been watching residents for decades. And somewhere inside that city, right now, there's a woman getting ready for work who also happens to lead a house church on Friday nights. She's memorized which streets have cameras. She knows never to carry a Bible in her bag. She rotates the meeting location every few weeks so no pattern develops. She has a cover story ready. She's rehearsed it. This is not paranoia. This is Tuesday. And it's not just Tehran. In cities like Isfahan, Mashhad, Shiraz, communities of converts live this same double life. Publicly, they go through the motions the state and society expect of them. They fast during Ramadan so their co-workers don't ask questions. Some of the women wear the hijab not out of belief but out of survival. They mark the Islamic holidays on the outside while quietly celebrating Easter and Christmas behind closed curtains with people they trust with their lives. The food at those gatherings, and this detail always gets me, is distinctly Iranian. Saffron rice. Herb stew. Pomegranate. The flavors of a culture they love deeply, served at a table where they're praying to someone the state has told them they have no right to pray to. There's something quietly defiant about that. Something deeply human. And the kids. That's where it gets truly complicated. Parents face an impossible calculation. Do you raise your child in the faith and risk them saying the wrong thing at school, one innocent sentence to the wrong friend? Or do you protect them by keeping them in the dark, and risk them growing up never really knowing who their parents are, or why their family is different? Some families wait until their children are teenagers before finally telling them the truth. Others bring them in early, and spend years teaching them the one skill no child should ever have to master. How to keep a secret that could take their family apart. Everything you've heard so far points in one direction. Pressure. Crackdown. Disappearance. So the next sentence is going to sound like a mistake. Christianity in Iran is growing. Not shrinking. Not surviving on life support. Growing. Faster, by some estimates, than almost anywhere else on Earth. Researchers who track global religious trends have been quietly stunned by the numbers coming out of Iran for over a decade. One study suggested Iran may have the fastest growing evangelical Christian population in the world. In the world. In a country where converting can cost you everything. Think about what that actually means. The more the government cracks down, the more people seem to turn toward the very thing they're cracking down on. Evin prison has become, in a dark and unintended way, one of the most effective recruitment tools the Iranian church never asked for. In case after documented case, pastors go in, come out, and go right back to leading their communities. One of the most well-known is Yusef Nadarkhani, a father of two who ran a small congregation out of his home in the city of Rasht. Arrested, tried, and sentenced to death for apostasy. His case went international. World leaders called for his release. After nearly 3 years on death row, he was freed. He went back to pastoring. He was arrested again. And still, he kept going. That's not stubbornness. That's something that doesn't have a clean secular explanation. And here's what catches most people completely off guard. A significant driver of this growth isn't missionaries crossing borders with suitcases full of Bibles. It's satellite television. It's Instagram. It's YouTube. Persian-language Christian channels broadcasting from the US, from the UK, beaming content directly into Iranian living rooms and onto Iranian phones. The government has tried to block it. The signal keeps getting through. There's a generation of young Iranians who grew up under the Islamic Republic, who are quietly, privately, walking away from the state's version of faith and searching for something else. Some find Christianity. Some find atheism. Some reach back toward ancient Persian spirituality. But the walking away is real. And it terrifies the government far more than any foreign policy threat ever could. Because you can sanction a country. You can bomb infrastructure. But you cannot legislate what happens inside a human heart at 2 in the morning when someone is searching for something true. And if that idea stays with you, you need to see what's happening inside Turkey's last remaining Christian village. A community that has held the same liturgy, in the same language, in the same stone buildings, for over 1,000 years, and is now down to a handful of families. That story is sitting right there on your screen. It will stay with you.